The Queen of Cups has an esoteric meaning of pure emotion. Hello, I'm Michael J. Auger, creator of the Allcento Tarot. One of the earliest versions of the Queen of Cups is from the Visconti-Bergamo Tarot, also known as the Pierpont Morgan deck. In this deck, she is depicted wearing a gold crown and a high-waisted gown, decorated with the Visconti heraldic device of a sun, with intermixed wavy and straight rays. She seems to be waving with her left hand, and her other hand holds an elaborate cup with a cover that hides its secret contents. She sits facing forward, but glances to the left. The cup of this queen in the Marseille style tradition is also covered. Her throne has a canopy that curls over her head, leaving only a small opening in front of her to peek towards the left. However, her attention is focused on the covered cup that rests on her knee. The chest of the gown she wears is bound tightly with a belt, suggesting that her heartfelt emotions remain concealed. She also holds a short sword across her shoulder, as if ready to defend an attack from the behind right. This hints at a personality that has a lot to offer, but remains guarded and protective of their valuable, intuitive abilities. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn described the Queen of Cups as beautiful, tranquil, creative, and dreamy. The ibis is her personal emblem and companion. This sacred bird of Thoth, the god of wisdom and communication, hints at the power of water as the communicator of wisdom through the subconscious. In one hand, she holds a cup without a cover, but containing a crayfish, as a reference to the ebb and flow of secret lunar energies. And with her other hand, she holds a lotus, the sacred flower of Isis, the great mother of the Sea of Bina. The Queen of Cups in the Thoth deck, created by Lady Frida Harris under the guidance of Aleister Crowley, follows in the Golden Dawn tradition, with the queen that holds a shell-like cup with a crayfish in one hand and the lotus of Isis in the other. She is robed in and veiled by curves of light that share similarities to the energies that emanate from the High Priestess. And like the High Priestess, she has a mysterious nature. In the Book of Thoth, Crowley describes her as the perfect agent and says, "It is hardly possible to see the truth of her, for she reflects the nature of the observer in great perfection." In other words, the personality of this archetype is like a mirror that reflects the influences of her surroundings while remaining unaffected. She is exceedingly popular because when others look at her, they only see themselves. When ill-dignified, her reflections are distorted. However, she is usually a conduit for others to see things more clearly. Although her creative and intuitive nature restricts her from directly affecting the material, she is able to provide excellent advice to others and often provides inspiration to spur others into action. She makes a wonderful advocate. The Queen of Cups in the deck created by Pamela Colman Smith under the guidance of Arthur Edward Waite includes a covered cup similar to the Marseille style. However, this cup appears to be a ciborium, which is a sacred vessel used by Catholics to hold the bread and wine that, through transubstantiation, becomes the body and blood of Jesus, the Christ. This particular ciborium has extensions on either side with winged angels. The Queen's attention is intently focused on this covered vessel as though she is contemplating the mystery of what is contained within. Waite describes this queen as one who sees visions in a cup. However, he explains that this is only one of her aspects. She sees, but she also acts, and her activity feeds her dream. Her strong connection with the subconscious nurtures her creative talents. Her cape is decorated with waves, and her watery blue gown flows into the sea of subconscious, similar to the gown of the High Priestess, from which esotericists say all water depicted in the tarot originates. The Queen of Cups sits where the land meets the sea, and there's a fish that has swum out of the sea to lie on the beach, perhaps to seek her good counsel. The throne she sits on is decorated with a scallop shell carved into the top, supported by undines. Historians believe that many of the cards in the tarot created by Waite and Smith, including this one, were strongly influenced by the Solabusca tarot, created in the late 15th century. Photographs of the Solabusca deck were on exhibit at the British Museum 2 years prior to the creation of the deck illustrated by Smith, and she most likely saw the cards on display there. The Queen of Cups from the Solobusca deck also has her attention focused on a vessel towards her left, from which a serpent rises. She sits on a majestic dolphin-armed throne, and this card is labeled with the name Polysena. This may be a reference to the Trojan Polysena, who Achilles fell in love with and confided the weakness of his heel. She then betrayed Achilles by sharing the secret of his one weakness with her brother Paris, who then killed him. However, there's another theory, suggested by tarot consultant Mary K. Greer, that the Queen of Cups depicted in the Solobusca deck may be a different Polysena from a medieval sourcebook that features a story in which a woman by this very same name has a vision of a dragon that swallows her. She was then rescued by a brother of the Apostle Paul, who told her that she had no power, yet also said that God has you dear, seeing that he has shown you strange and marvelous things. A unifying theme of every depiction of this queen is her clear connection with water, emotion, and the visionary attributes of the subconscious. Of all the queens, the Queen of Cups is the most like a muse. The allegorical Greek figure of Calliope is often considered the chief of all muses, and she can be found included in the Mantegna tarot, attributed to Andrea Mantegna, although art historians no longer believe him to be the actual artist of these educational picture cards that are not actually a tarot. Nevertheless, the so-called Mantegna tarot contains many of the same archetypes, and while there's no Queen of Cups, the depiction of Calliope stands next to an ornate vessel or cup. And here's another depiction, thought by historians to be of Calliope, painted by the Italian early Renaissance artist Cosme Tura in the year 1460. Although this woman doesn't hold a cup, she has an allure of mystery that I feel perfectly captures the essence of the Queen of Cups archetype. She sits on an unusual maritime throne with a scalloped shell and crystal beads and ferocious-looking sea monsters that I absolutely love. And you can see how this masterpiece was one of the main inspirations for the Queen of Cups of the Allcento tarot. Her elaborate throne is adorned with a monstrous double-headed fish from which a giant shell is suspended. This, in turn, is supported by a pair of winged undines. And upon this magnificent throne sits the Queen of Cups, facing forward, empathetically connecting with the viewer, yet remaining regal and elusive at the same time. This archetype often resonates strongly with tarot readers due to her energy as a subtle guide, confidant, and advocate for others. She holds the lotus of Isis in her left hand, and with her other hand she holds a large cup that is covered by a crystal ball lid that acts as a vessel for divination. An ibis has landed next to her to seek counsel, and there's also a hermit crab that can be seen crawling on a nearby rock. She has a nurturing personality and a deeply empathetic understanding of the situations and emotions of others. This combination of compassion and instinctual understanding of creative inspiration grants her the knowledge of how everything is connected. Her deeply spiritual energy is the pure essence of the element of water. Behind her, the water is as still as a mirror. However, she dips her toe into the dark and choppy waters below. The hem of her dress is decorated with a chevron pattern inspired by the floor of the Red Room of Twin Peaks from the mind of David Lynch. The universe is even bigger on the inside, and the Queen of Cups invites us all to drink full and descend. And if you'd like to explore more of my artwork that taps into the mysterious and offbeat depths of the subconscious, I invite you to visit my website, offbeatartwork.com. Our spiritual journey through the history and symbolism of the tarot will continue soon, so subscribe and ring that bell to keep connected. Also, please be sure to give this episode a thumbs up and leave a comment to share your support. And until next time, brightest blessings on your spiritual journey.